Hello and welcome back to another LookdevX video. In this video, I want to show you how you can create your custom compounds and how to make them work the way you want to. So again, we have a new fresh Maya. Let's create a graph. This will open up LookdevX. I can now hit tab to create a Arnold standard surface shader. And we now have our material container. Let's just name this sensible. Let's name this compounds. And within this compounds, we will now be creating a couple of compounds, which makes sense. I don't actually need the standard surface in this case. What I just want to do is hit Ctrl G to create an empty compound. And for this demo, what I want to do, I just want to create a texture loader. We kind of briefly touched upon the idea in the previous video, and now I want to make actually a good use for it and show you exactly what I want to do here. And you can now see in our groupings here, we have an MTL scope, we have compounds, and we have a texture loader. What I can do now, I can name the stage to compounds like that. So compound shape, that's my stage name, and then our material container is named compounds. And what I can do, I can double click to save the file. Let's just save it in our project hierarchy. And now we have a compounds USD file. And this is now stored on disk. So whenever I do changes, I'm targeting the compounds USD file, which means that whatever I do will be saved there. All right, texture loader. Technically, what is it supposed to do? In my ideal world, I want to have a texture loader. Let's say I want to have my diffuse color. I want to type in the file path for diffuse, and then I'll have some options on the top level that allows me to control it. And this is a production workflow example that I would use when I would be doing LookDev in a show environment. All right, so now let's hop in here. And by default, in and out. So the first thing I want to do is obviously we want to load in an image, right? The image is using the Arnold image loader, and this will be our default image input. So we want to expose, as I said before, the file name because we want to be able to access that quite easily from the top level. We also want to control the color space. And we do have a couple of things in the image node like multiplication, we can offset things, change the bitmap bias. So these are very specific things to that node. But what I like to do, I like always to create the color correct node from Arnold and connect the image to the input. And now I have more controls to expose because in most cases you do want to be able to gamma the image. Let's expose that to the top level. We want to be able to hue shift. We want to change saturation. We do want to multiply things. And I believe this is roughly what we want to do. A good habit is also to supply a levels, a range that allows me to set the black level. So I can just connect that up as well. And then we just want to control the output min, which essentially just lifts the blacks to a certain level. And then a good habit is to also have a clamp, which allows the image to not go above a certain threshold. And we can also expose that threshold, let's say max color, make sure the mode is set to color, and then we want to expose the max color as well. And all of this goes to my output, right? We can name this port. Let's say we can go out RGB just to be clear what type it is, but it's already color coded with the port values, data types. And now if we go up hitting U, you can now see we have all these fancy things exposed, which is pretty cool. What I don't like about this is that it obviously takes the parameters from the inside, and sometimes it's not clear what is max color or what is output min. No one really knows. The cool thing now in the parameters option here, you can hit that little pencil icon, or you can right click and use customize UI. That allows me to, if I select a parameter, max color, I can easily rename this. And let's say this is clamp, maybe clamp color, maybe. And now hit enter, and now that is being renamed. We can also output min. Let's say that should be my black levels, hit enter, that's now configured. And you can also specify a range for the sliders. So by default, it's 0 and 10, now it's 0 and 1. And another cool thing is you can group things. So if I go back to customize, I can right click gamma, add to group, new. And let's say I want to say, I just want to name this color correct corrections. And now we've got this group. I can select this, shift clicking, dragging them up, and now they are part of the color corrections group. And only the color space and the file name is now exposed on the top level. Pretty cool. So now we've got the texture loader, which has output RGB. We've got file name, color space, and we have color corrections down here. All right, so that is now a texture loader. Maybe name this actually RGB. Save. And what we can do now, we can duplicate this guy and make a texture loader float. This now allows us to do a little bit other things to it. Instead of just having a color mode, we can also use for floats essentially. And a couple of things, we want to change the clamping. So we want to control Alt Shift drag to create the cut handles. We want to change our clamping to scalar. Our output name, parameter name should be out value. So now we're setting this guy up, and we also want to expose a couple more for the range. We want definitely to have input min and max exposed, and output min and max as well. And we do want smooth stepping exposed as well. So they are now here. Clamp color, we can delete that port. Black levels, we can delete that port. We can use multiply to color correct it. Saturation, we can delete. Hue shift, we can delete. Gamma, we can technically keep. Color space, and that will stay. All right, if we go up a level now, we see we have a couple of other things exposed. And again, we can enable the pencil, select our inputs here, and now they are part of the color corrections group. And this is how quickly you can create your own texture compounds or whatever. And now you would think, how would I use them? Similar as I kind of explained in the beginning. You could now do a standard surface, create that, and hit that to connect it to the surface here. That will create our Arnold surface port. And now let's say we want to duplicate the texture loader. Let's just name this one diffuse, and I want to connect that to my base color. So that's my diffuse loader. And now let's do Control D, and we want to do a SSS texture, and this will go to subsurface color. Now let's do a texture loader for the float, and we want to do roughness. Also, what I didn't do, actually, we can go back to the ports, and if you delete the RGB, delete that guy, and just now you do probably an RGB to, you don't really have to, I think you can just connect the red. This will now create a single out, but a cleaner way would be to do RGB to float and hook that up, and then the out would go in here, and you can specify what you want to do for the mode. We probably do want to just have the luminance, and then this would be, we can rename this again. This would be out value, and now the data type is a float instead of a RGB. So if I go back out, we have now just a float, and now we can easily collect that to, let's duplicate this, sorry, and create a specular roughness, and then hook that up to our specular roughness. You can already see where I'm going with this. So now we are creating our custom texture loaders or texture inputs, and we have our file names exposed on the left, and we can do all sorts of controls. A cool thing now in LookdevX, you can hit Shift B to create backdrops, which is a new feature, which is super awesome. You can name it to textures, and a couple of options in the backdrops. You have colors, title sizes. You can obviously move or scale them and move the content, so that's super nice. And then also, if you're not sure what the node names are, you can hit T to display the types. So now you can see it's an Arnold standard surface shader. So this should give you a little bit more insights on how to create compounds. And in the next video, we will be doing a little bit more custom material containers, custom materials itself, and we will be utilizing a couple of nodes from the ones we created just now.